Well, welcome once again to another edition of the Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett. I am your host, Sonia Barrett, and thank you for joining me on this Monday. Wishing you the best that the week has to offer, as always. And, I love these quotes. So each quote is generally related to whatever we're going to be discussing for the day. And today we're going to be talking about a very unique technology. And so my quote today is this: water does not resist, water flows. When you plunge your hand into it, all you feel is a caress. Water is not a solid wall, it will not stop you, but water always goes where it wants to go. And nothing in the end can stand against it. Water is patient. Dripping water wears away a stone. Remember that, my child. Remember, you are half water. If you can't go through an obstacle, go around it. Water does. And that's by Margaret Atwood, the Penelopoid, I believe. And so today's topic is going to be about an advanced atmospheric water generation technology known as AWG. It is a water crisis solution in so many different ways. And so our guest today is Moses West, the founder and owner of AWG Contracting. So let us look a bit on his bio here. And I'm going to read quite a bit of this because I think it's very necessary as we have our discussion with Moses. Moses West is the founder and owner of AWG. Mr. West combines a very unique background as a prior member of the United States Armed Forces, where he is an esteemed member of the 75th Ranger Regiment, the Second Armored Division, the Second Infantry Division, the Seventh Cavalry Regiment, and the 101 Airborne Division. The experiences of military deployment provided Mr. West with unique appreciation for the value of water and his advanced technical skills, thus propelling him into lifelong mission of producing the leading edge of the most advanced technology to produce water from air. AWG Contracting, under the guidance of Mr. West, has successfully completed deployments of large AWG units to Puerto Rico and recently to Flint, Michigan, providing an extremely pure and unlimited source of free water to the residents, all on donations. The mission to Puerto Rico was the first time that any technology such as this has ever been powered by solar energy. Mr. West is currently developing new methods of implementation of his technology to include social responsibility and ownership of local water, flood, and energy production based around the science of centralized point-specific water production from the atmosphere. And so, without further ado, I would like to welcome you, Moses West, to the Expansion Zone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. It's a great honor.
Really great to have you here. And, right before starting the interview, I was saying to Moses that someone had sent me some information about him and his technology, and I immediately had to contact him. And you know how, I like to do that. I got to find out what's going on with the latest of anything, whatever that edgy subject matter is. And so, Moses, would you, I think, start out by maybe just sort of giving the audience an idea as to what AWG is? We're going to dive into it, but just for the sake of beginning our conversation, just a condensed version as to what we're talking about with this water technology.
The easiest version that I can come up with and tell you is, if you look at science and you look at the periodic table and you look at water as an element, okay, water comes in three forms on the planet Earth. It comes as a liquid, it comes as a solid, and it comes as a gas. First step, easiest, liquid, solid, and a gas. The technology, what it does is it uses an advanced technology to farm the water out of the air. The same way that we'll drill into the ground to get oil, we'll crush a mountain to get coal, we use a technology to get water. So instead of getting a fossil fuel, we're getting water with technology, because the atmosphere, the gaseous state of water, is the most plentiful source of water.
All right. Well, I think you summed it up really well. But of course, you've only done this, a few 100 times or 1,000 times or more. So, all right. So that kind of sets the stage for the audience with where we're going and what we're going to be talking about. Now, let's look at your background a little bit, because I'd like to look at you, just have you talk about your background a little bit, and then we can dive into what, at what point did this suddenly become, I've got to do something. But let's talk about your background a little.
My background is I've never been one to sit still. Even when I graduated from university, and I went straight into the military as an infantry officer, I would always negotiate with my assignments officer to be in a place for a short period of time, because I knew the military was a way for me to travel around the world and to get as many jobs as I could possibly get, because everything to me was always exciting. And so when I left the military, what I did is I traveled the globe. I lived in Australia for 11 years. I lived in Sweden. I lived in Germany. I lived in Italy. I even lived in Sicily. Sicily is Italy, but I lived in Sicily for a while, and I lived in Germany off and on several times. I even traveled to Hungary and stayed there for a while. And in this global view of the planet, and living in these places, not as a tourist, but as a resident for extended periods of time, I learned quite a bit. I saw what we have more in common than what we don't have in common. And I saw this common need for, as the planet started to change, I saw this common need, especially in Australia, which where it really hit me, was what the shortage of water was doing. I flew into Australia one time, and they had turned the water, the treatment that was flowing to sea, they purified it and they turned it and they put it back into the tap, because the water was the water table had dropped so far. So seeing how the world was being stressed with water is how I started to work on this technology. I know we needed a source of water. And so I worked on cistern systems for a while. I thought that was the way to go, because it needed to rain to fill a cistern, but it wasn't always raining. And then one day my next door neighbor had a machine in his house that was condensing the water in his apartment and making a couple of liters. And he invited me in, and I sat there and I tasted the water. And from that point, when I saw that little machine, I thought that was the oh my God moment. I said, if you can make it that small, you can surely make it bigger. And then I spent the next 12 years figuring out how to make it bigger and more efficient, and I've never stopped.
Apparently, as you said earlier, you can't sit still. I think that you have found the one thing that will never allow you to sit still. But so, all right, so I'm kind of jumping a little bit, maybe in all over the place, but what I'm curious about is, we know it's clean water. What kind of water is it? Is it water that can be compared to maybe distilled water or rainwater? Can you tell us that?
Oh, most definitely. If you the only thing that these machines do that I manufacture is the same thing that's happening up in the clouds before the rain falls through the air and collects dust and everything else it collects. The only thing the machine is doing that exact same process on the ground. I'm using a surface area at a certain temperature, pulling air over it at a certain volume of air coming through. The volume of air, we call it the CFM. And that air that comes through is the same air that you and I are breathing right now. Right. We're breathing in moisture. It is the same water that you're breathing in, except we're condensing it out. So the water is a very clean source of water. It's not distilled. But the thing about starting with a pure source of water, the base of water, having it in its purest form, is you could tailor it.
Right,
If you
right.
were if you were a moonshiner, this is the best. This is you would never give your machine up, because you would always have a constant chemically balanced set a base to
As
work
nature
with.
intended.
It's nature intended, exactly. And so from that point, you can add whatever you like, the vitamins, the minerals, whatever, because you're starting out with a pure source of water.
The base. Wow. Yeah, and and I was curious because I remember as a child in Jamaica going to the country, and I remember at that time them catching water in drums and in a well, washing our hair with rainwater. Of course, yes, I'm dating myself, as my audience knows. My looks are always very deceiving, but to just to think about that, that's why I asked, what was the quality of the water. But that's what you're talking about. It's just pure water, clean water. Now let's talk also about the process then of creating these machines, because what does it really take to actually create these? Because I don't know if is it one size or there are different sizes of these machines. What does it really take to put something like this together, just to put one together?
That's a great question. When I decided to build the large machines, I had been looking around the world. I looked at Asia, I looked at the Pacific Rim, I looked at all the countries where people were working on some similar technology. And the technology was limited to the size of the HVAC, the refrigeration components, compressors, and having coolant run through the entire system. And I remember when I was sitting in Puerto Rico with the first unit that we took out there for Hurricane Maria. And every time I moved a machine, it would leak. It's like if you shook up your refrigerator, you shook up your home air conditioner, those little places where you've welded the copper together, those little wells, they break and the system leaks. So when the guy comes to your house to repair your air conditioner, he goes in and he recharges it because it leaked. That had to be eliminated. And so as I sat there in Puerto Rico, providing people with water, what I did was I started to think about how this system was made. And that's how I figured out how to make it expandable. So basically today, what I've done is I've taken a technology that's limited in size because it's all mechanical. I've added a non-mechanical component to the machine, which makes it expandable. So if I sit down with a group of engineers, like say Southwest Research Institute, and we sit down together, or sit down with the guys at MIT, I guarantee you that I can make a system the size of the New Orleans Superdome.
Wow.
That would make water. But the larger you make it with non-mechanical parts, this is the best part about it. The larger you make it with non-mechanical parts, with that surface area that creates water, the less energy you use.
Yeah, less expensive. I was gonna.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because now you're making water in the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of gallons,
Makes
but
sense.
you're using less power because you've increased the non-electrical or non-energy consuming components. That's what I've done. I'm an innovator in the technology.
I love that. Yeah, because I was watching something else and you were talking about that, eliminating the toxicity issue. So, okay, so we got that part. Now, again, I'm curious. You don't have to say, but cost to create something like that, is it the machine that people can buy, individually, or is it more based on like a community or a city, or and what are the scales that this technology can be had?
With economy of scale, when you have that, when you start to receive large orders, and then I can order components in larger amounts, then the price naturally comes down. If you're building something one at a time and you have specific customers and you don't have a large production line, the cost is very high for technology. But how I look at the machine is I want to get that price point down. I would like to get the price point down to a place where we could have it in Costco, where you could roll into Costco, you say, I want my atmospheric water generator. They could carry it out on a forklift and put it in the bed of your pickup truck, and you're off to the races.
Hey, I'm going to be first in line, just to let you know.
And so right now, of course, the cost is going to be higher because, especially with supply chain issues, what we've got, cost of metals have gone up, and everything that I manufacture to a high degree of quality, a high quality degree, because my main customer is the United States military. And so right now, as soon as we finish this interview, I'm actually going up to the manufacturing plant to review diagrams and schematics of new equipment that I'm building for them. And so but I would love to see this technology in every home. And that process to get those price points down where it is the process of getting more orders, more research and development in. And so far, we've been doing this all on this income, and then that's it.
Yeah, well, you've been doing a fantastic job. And I think, as the more you get the information out there is always someone there, 1, 2, 3, or several people. There's somebody there that may just come out of the blue and say, you know what, I want in. And it's a partnership. It's something that is workable. So I'm going to ask this question now, because I know how our system is, but, is there any pushback? And also, in terms of these big corporations that like to try to lock everything in, this is going to be taking money out of some people's pockets.
Yes, that's probably a whole other interview that we could do. we would have to do that interview, and then we'd have to edit it accordingly.
I know. Believe me. Yeah, I know. But you know what? But I think that this is where we are. We are in a time where we have to begin to find independent ways. I mean, and that's what my show is about, the expansion zone. So everybody knows that, I'm all about that. And they also know there are things that I've gotten in trouble for talking about, for saying. All right. So the bottom line of it is, this is a time where we are needing to find our own way instead of just waiting for the system. And this is why I like what you are doing, because you are bringing innovation, but you're also stirring that thinking again in people's minds.
I look at how I can date myself with this too. Where I grew up in Catala, where I was born in Georgia, Columbus, Georgia. I grew up in a place, I lived in a place as a baby, as a child, that's called Catala. The houses didn't have I think each house had one line of electricity coming into it. There was a well in the front of the house, and every house had a garden in the back. But each one of those 3 houses that was in Catala, and then there was a 4th and a 5th house where my great grandparents lived down the road a piece. It was a dirt road. And then other relatives lived in this area called Catala. But each one of those houses, even though they didn't have electricity and running water, and the stoves worked on wood, each one of those houses was a net producer of food. A net producer of food. Each one of those houses produced enough food to sell, to keep income coming in to support that entire family. With the hogs that were in the backyard, and no sewage, everything was on outhouses. But this is how they lived, and they lived a very good life. It was a sustainable life. And so with this technology today, what I see, my vision that I see is each person living in a net zero world that we need to go to. Each person with solar, you can produce not only your own power for your home. With a water generator, if you decide to have an Olympic swimming pool and you live in a climate where you can do it, you could have one with a water generator. Plus, you can supply water to your house. So that's a line that you get to cut to the water utility, or you can live on a piece of land that doesn't have water, where you needed a well, where now you can use a water generator. have your own power, and grow your own food. So if you have water and power, you can have food. This is an absolutely revolutionary idea behind the net zero concept and the 17 tenets of sustainability as added to as private living and commercial living. It is one of the fastest ways to go carbon neutral, carbon negative.
Mm. I know. I'm trying to zip it on some questions.
Oh, feel free, just ask away.
Oh my gosh. All right. So, years ago, back in, I think, 2006, there was a documentary called The Shape of Water with Dr. Vandana Shiva in it. Are you familiar?
Yes.
Yeah. And so it brought that to mind of these areas in India and in these other countries as well, where they were trying to privatize water and also some of these areas where lakes and so on were drying up. They were trying to privatize water, and I don't think a lot of people understand that these things are going on in these areas, and these people are struggling in just getting water, the distance that they have to go to even bring water back to the village. So this technology is perfect. Now, what do you what is your experience with like certain different countries or different pockets that may be like this? Have you been working with any of these areas with this technology? Anybody says we'd love to be able to have this here in these countries or in these regions?
Most definitely. Dexter and I, we've been at this for a while, and one thing that happens is Dexter and I, we have this conversation. It's like every person that calls up and says that I have a connection where I would love to take this to Africa. I have a connection. I would love to take this to Jamaica. I have a connection. I would love to take this to the Bahamas. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen because everyone is tripping over themselves to get in between something that goes to help people. Everyone has to make their part of something that is going to save someone's life. Or sometimes, like Dexter and I, what we'll do is when I go to a place to help, I mean, I go there with boots on the ground. I go there, I live there, I stay there, and I work. And then I try to get other people to come and work with me. I'd like to teach other people to do the same. But the other thing is I see this drive and this push to make water a commodity. How can you make water a commodity when the planet is covered in water? When it's in the air, we have technology to get it. If we all had the technology to drill in the ground to get oil and refine our own oil, that wouldn't be good for business. But right now, what I'm showing everybody is that we have the capability to continue to have water as a human right, which it is. The air that the people in India right now, they're trying to get them to buy water and make it a commodity. And I guarantee you it's 90% humidity and it's 100 degrees outside.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody's sweating because it's so humid.
So there's the water.
There's the water right there. Don't keep that technology from people. This is a revolutionary technology that needs to be advanced in all scientific communities, especially today. If you look at Europe, it's on fire. Mm-hmm. Have you seen those riverbeds in Italy? Mm-hmm. Those people are walking down the riverbeds. Mm-hmm. I learned how to ski on a glacier called the Zugspitze. And that was just outside of Munich, Germany. I learned how to ski there way back in the 80s. The Zugspitze was a glacier that was there for thousands of years. It's gone. The glaciers are not just melting anymore, they're exploding. Wow. So that means all the rivers are going to stop. So what we see today is your water disappearing, but it's going into the air. So this technology is absolutely essential. We don't even have any water to go purify. And I guarantee you, no one else will say it, but I'll tell you right now, Lake Mead's days are numbered. Mm-hmm. Wow. It's not coming. It's inevitable. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not coming back. This has been 22 years. Go back to when it first started, 22 years ago. Lake Mead has been on a trajectory down. It's a foregone conclusion.
Wow. That is something else. And we do need to take a break. But that reminds me, when you said that, I don't think a lot of people realize that once upon a time, the planet, before we had rain, is what they referred to as a firmament. All we had was moisture. That was it. That's what we had. That's what kept everything going. It wasn't, four seasons. And we are back. Of course, I'm coming to you from KPFK 90.7 FM in Southern California and streaming live at kpfk.org. And you are listening to The Expansion Zone with Sonia Barrett, and that is me. And we are chatting with my guest, Moses West, and he is the founder of AWG, Atmospheric Water Generation. And I am telling you, this is it's a fascinating conversation, I think, on levels that those who can hear. There's many levels to this conversation, and we really need to see that. We need to see that, not just the fact that we're talking about water, but the many levels of this in really taking back our power as individuals and as a collective. And this is a great part of it, because we got to have water. There's no water. If we have, if you're starving, if you don't have water, it's just over. So, and the dried up lakes and rivers, so on. Yes, I'm going to make reference. I'm also a Qigong, medical Qigong teacher trainer. So in Qigong, they talk about, we talk about water, the waters, rivers, lakes in the body. Same thing. We're dealing with the same system inside and outside. We got to have water. So this is why this is an important conversation. And, let's just touch on this really quickly as well. We talk about food, growing food and water. In this current time that we're dealing with people being afraid in terms of their health. And we talk about the Black community, impoverished areas where the education of food and water is not so prominent. Let's just talk about that just for a brief moment, the necessity of water and organic food for the health of the body. Oh, I'm just going to have you, I'm going to have you chime in.
Okay, most definitely. During COVID, one of the things when I was at Fort Sam Houston, there in San Antonio, and we're part of a member of Port San Antonio. But when COVID hit us in San Antonio, I lived on the military base there at Fort Sam Houston, and this is just less than a year ago. And one of the doctors said to me, he goes, "Moses, you're going to be fine." He was my next door neighbor. He says, "You're going to be fine," and it's because they had all this information about COVID before we went into the restrictions. And I said, "Well, how do you know?" He goes, "I see you every day. You're on your bike, you go to the gym, you exercise, your body, your BMI is absolutely where it should be. At your age, you've taken very good care of yourself. You only eat organic food. You're not eating red meat. You're not doing all these things that are unhealthy. You are going to just breeze through it. But if you watched everything that was in the news, it would scare you to death. And how it was decimating different communities around the United States. And so that organic diet and that having your health where it could be, where your body has the strength to fight these pathogens that come our way. And so that diet is so important, but that organic diet starts with a high quality of water to grow the food. There's something that's taking place right now. Please, everybody, go out and look what Denmark is doing. Denmark is growing all of its food indoors in vertical grow operations, and they can feed Europe with how much food they grow vertically indoors. Organic, completely healthy, indoor vertical farming. With the atmospheric water generator, growing food indoors, vertical grow operations within inner cities, here's what you get. You get a healthier population. you get a clean source of water. And every high school that participates in this, guess what they get? They get something called science, technology, engineering, and mathematics all in a nutshell.
Wow.
Here, well, it gets better. Guess what else they get? The 17 tenets of sustainability is set forth by the United Nations, all with solar power, water generator, vertical grow operations, lesson plans, boys and girls operating equally. You've got it all. You've got electrical power, AC current, DC current, alternating direct current. You've got plumbing, you've got hydroponics, you've got aquaponics, you've got sustainability all right there. And all of this stays within the community, makes everybody healthier, and educates everyone at the same time.
That is incredible because, you know, to educate everyone in that manner, we're talking on the scale of mental health. That's going to change the society on so many levels. And that's what we've got to understand from just looking at the idea of mental health, and you take it all the way through this process that you just described. Man, we could have a society that is more optimally functioning, and our children, brilliant minds, because they're clear. So, you know, so this is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the bigger picture of what you're talking about and the possibilities that are there. And personally, I'm excited to see what else you're going to come up with, because I think once you get this part of it resolved in the sense of, you know, expansion and investments and these smaller models, I think you're going to be coming up with some more stuff. I got to stay in touch with you.
We've done it. In 2018, when Dexter and I, when we shipped that unit to Puerto Rico, that big 5,000 liter unit, we took it from Camp Mabry military base, Austin, Texas, off the base, scurried it to Puerto Rico. Sitting there at Susana Centeno Hospital after Hurricane Maria, there was a Tesla solar battery on the other side of the hospital, a Tesla solar array. That battery was putting out 480 volts of power, 3-phase. The little engineers from Tesla came across and they asked me what I was doing. I showed them the water generator. They said, that's interesting. They said, when you finish setting this up, come on to the other side of the building and let me show you what we're doing. After I set up and started my diesel generator, making that noise, but making water in that environment, I walked around to the other side of the building and there was my jaw dropped. We looked at each other. We didn't even have to say anything. The guy from Tesla said, let's make it happen.
Wow.
We did net zero then. That whole hospital ran on solar power. An entire hospital. We weren't using the hospital because it was contaminated, because the power went out and all the bacteria. But we had a MASH hospital outside. It was about 10 tents. They all had power. We ran that. We ran all the street lights. We ran the large water generator, and we supplied 5,000 people with drinking water on solar power within this metal fence with a military guard, with a satellite uplink that we could communicate from. That was net zero.
Wow.
The whole hospital on solar power and operated a water generator that gave 5,000 people daily drinking water. We've already done it. And so right now, the first person to step forward and say, let's do this, we could have that system up and running in 6 months.
Man,
this is not rocket science anymore.
Yeah,
this is off the shelf stuff.
right.
But
right.
people got to stop tripping over themselves to put blocks in the way to do this. This should be done. This should be done in every city. That's every southern state, California.
It's a given.
Yeah, it is.
It's a given. And now we're talking, you know, especially now we're talking about fires. I mean, there's so many things that we're talking about. And, you know, what's your experience with that?
Well, we were just in a town in Texas, and I was doing this. We were doing a newscast with NBC, and a fire broke out. and we had a brush fire, caused a lot of trouble, a lot of problems there. And the newscaster said, well, what should we do? I said, well, we got 500 gallons of water. Let's put it out. And he goes, really? I said, yeah. So we plugged the pump in, and I'm standing there. I'll get you in contact with him. Hopefully he'll give you the footage. And we sat there and we put out a fire. And then the cameraman started to have heat stroke. And then we took out the hose and we ran probably 50 to 75 gallons over his head till his body cooled down.
I was going to say, yeah, because that water is cold too, isn't it?
Yes, this water was sitting in a tank. It was outside, but it's still cool enough,
right.
And it cooled him down.
Wow.
So if every house had one of these little systems and you had 1,000 gallons stored up, you have your own little firefighting agency right there.
Man, I'm telling you. All right, so I was going to ask you, what was I going to ask you just now? I was going to ask you, the length of time that it takes to make certain amount of water. But I also, right now, I'd like for you to give out your information first. We're going to give it out again, but let's give out your information first, because there are people that are going to contact me. It took so long to, have him give out the information.
Okay, I have a couple things. They have a for-profit company, which is AWG Contracting US.com. That's the website, awgcontractingus.com. My contracting officer who fixes all the messes that I make and takes all the information in is Mr. Dexter Moon, who's on this with us right here. And so he's Dexter at awgcontractingus.com. I'm not going to give you mine.
Oh, you'll get bombarded.
But it's all right. Let us get bombarded, because we can go through that, and we love to give information to people. My phone number is even out there. People call me every day. And then we have a foundation. It's called the Moses West Foundation. And the Moses West Foundation, what we do with that, if I get enough money to come in there, I will build a machine and I will give it to someone. I'll give it to Native Americans. I'll give it to Jamaica. I'll give it to Hawaii. I'll give it to whoever needs it, and I'll take the people in and I'll train them on that machine. It allows me to take a machine to a high school, to demonstrate the machine, to teach sustainability to children, to do the nonprofit side of the work. And that's what the Moses West Foundation does. And you can donate there. It's moseswestfoundation.org. And then we also have a GoFundMe on our Instagram page, and the Moses West Foundation on Instagram.
And I'm going to provide all of those links in the profile page, his profile page on the expansionzone.com, so that if you didn't get all of that, you'll be able to click on the link. And I should also say, those of you who are listening to the interview, you can also watch the interview on YouTube and where else? YouTube and on the website and a few other places. Oh, of course, Instagram. We'll have there'll be an excerpt there on Instagram as well. But anyway, so all right, so let's talk about the length of time that it takes to produce X amount. How long does it take to produce X amount of water in a day? How is it based on the size of the machine, to produce?
Size of machine. I could build you a machine that you could put down in Florida and make 100 gallons every 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like
it depends on how big I make the machine. Yeah. If you tell me, if we back into it and you say, I want 50 gallons an hour, 100 gallons an hour, 250 gallons an hour. That's what I sit down with an engineer and I said, okay, let's make this design criteria. But we never measure it that way. What we measure the water production on is how much we make in a 24-hour period. So the machines that we make for the military, we shoot for 800 liters and 800 liters in a day. So anywhere from 250 to 300 gallons of water in a day. And then the larger machines, like what we took to Puerto Rico and Flint, we look for 1,250 gallons a day, 5,000 liters. But now we're up into the 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000, wow. And we're continuously growing on how much water we can produce.
And does it matter, where, yes, you did talk about different environments and the moisture, but does that slow anything? I mean, in terms of the environment, I don't know that it would, because air is air and the clouds are there and so on.
It's if you covered the entire earth every 50 feet and you put an atmospheric water generator and you made water and then you let that water out, the only thing you would have is you'd have an extremely green planet, because you're condensing the moisture, just putting it right back out. What does it do when it goes out? It just grows up. So basically, if you think about it theoretically, if you did put a machine everywhere you could put a machine and made water and then put that water out, you would actually reduce the carbon footprint, because all the plants that would grow would eat carbon.
Makes perfect
So
sense.
the machine does absolutely nothing to the environment. You cannot remove quadrillions of gallons of more. You can't dry up the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
With a machine.
Let's hear that, people. Yeah, you can't suck, and that would be like sucking all the oxygen out. I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. You can't not have it there.
One machine is not going to bring back Lake Mead. Where did Lake Mead go? Lake Mead went into the air.
That's what we're collecting. We're going to collect it, the lake from the air now. I love
Lake
it.
Mead is gone. So you're saying, oh, your one little machine is going to do so much damage. I say, go over there and look at that lake. That lake is gone. It's in the air.
Oh my gosh. Well, yeah, but that's just it. It's like you cannot deplete the air. I mean, you know what I mean? You can't deplete the air, which means you technically cannot run out of water.
Not at all. Hey, I would be very remiss right now. I've got to introduce Mr. Dexter Moon to y'all, because it's I would not be sitting here today, and I would not be in the condition that I'm in. Yeah, we had this great relationship because I was an officer in the military. Dexter was an NCO, and everybody's out there who was in the military understands how this officer would come in. He like do all this stuff, but it was always the NCO that would straighten him up. And your NCO would always have this thing he would say. He goes, "Sir, don't worry about it." He goes, "I'm gonna make you look like a rock star."
That's what he does.
So my top NCO then and my contracting officer is Mr. Dexter Moon, and I have to introduce you to him, because without Mr. Dexter Moon, you and I would not be having this conversation right now.
And Dexter, would you please just say hello?
Well, after that introduction, yes, hello, and thank you, Moses, and thank you, Sonia, for having me on today.
Yes, I wasn't sure if you wanted to say anything, but he was my first point of contact. And I got to tell you, what I loved was he was just like on it, you know, in responding. And to me, that's like so important to see that. Very, just very efficient and effective in terms of getting back to me and not having any lag time, really. So I really appreciate that. And if that is the model by which, you know, you work, you've got a great partnership in that sense, because you need that kind of movement to get things to flow and work a certain way, as you keep giving or providing our globe with this kind of technology and information. So I'm appreciative.
Oh, no, thank you. I mean, you know, this is a synergy. It takes many hands to reduce a light load, right? And part of that is, although Moses and myself and the company and the organizations are really trying to solve to this water scarcity issue that affects us all, it even takes people like yourself, Sonia, to synergize together, to collaborate, to get the word out, so that we can continue to help solve this issue that we're all facing. So no, we appreciate you and the invite, and to be here to share what we're doing and how we're trying to truly collaborate and help this issue that we all face.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Dexter. And I want to ask you, Moses, is there anything that you think that I mean, there's other things I'm going to talk about, but anything that you would like to share that maybe we didn't talk about, or some misconceptions sometimes that you go, gosh, you know, I really would like to address that. I didn't address that. anything you want to, say that we haven't talked about?
I would like to let everybody know that we have solutions to some of the greatest problems that we have. And everyone right now, especially today, we have a lot of division in the country. And everyone goes to the grocery store and everyone hears the rumors about what's happening with food. But what we're forgetting is that we can rely on ourselves and we can rely on the technology that we've made to help bring us through. The United Nations and forward-thinking countries around the world have been saying for a long time, we need to make these changes. We need to make these changes. If you look at the news today, you can see that we have not made the changes, and we have reached a place that is very critical. And so right now, instead of us continuing to, the one thing is that no one wants to be the doomsayer. I'll take on that mantle for you. Because when I first started doing this with the Texas Commission of Environmental Quality in the state of Texas, I said, guys, you got 5 years till the wheels fall off this bus. Let's get this done now. That was 5 years ago. If we would have done this, implemented this in the state of Texas 5 years ago, we would have organic food growing around neighborhoods in the state of Texas. We would have schools with some very good STEM programs, and Texas would be exporting out all of these sustainability engineers and farmers and solar people and water generator individuals who could go out into these communities and help us survive through this climate catastrophe that we're in. So I would like to just let everybody know that there are people like Dexter and myself out there. There's people out there working at Southwest Research Institute, MIT, and all these places around the world that are not all bought out yet. And we're working for a planet that is going to be hospitable for our children. And so when Dexter and I, when we work and what we do, we're not just thinking about the bottom line. And I don't think about the bottom line. My bottom line is human society and your health and what is left to the children, because they're going to look at us. They already look at us and they say, look what y'all did. Look what you're leaving us. And then the kids look at us and they say, hey, this is something great that y'all are doing. They're teaching what we do, this technology, in high schools now. All day, all my entire weekend is full teaching private schools around the world this weekend, lecturing on the technology of atmospheric water generation and sustainability. Children, because they are the future of this. So there is hope.
Oh, absolutely. Now, some of those, the teaching, is that you going to different schools, or is this online, or, for anybody listening who's thinking, wow, how can I get my child in on that? Is it per school, or is there a general?
So far, it's been by schools, if by invitation. When I have a piece of equipment that I can take to a school, I've done it in San Antonio. And I'm up here in the Midwest now, so I'll start doing it in the Midwest, probably when school starts again. Mainly it's online, and it's teachers calling me, and I'm sending them pictures and information, so they're teaching it that way. But this weekend, the whole weekend is all online.
Oh, okay.
And I got to get busy and start doing that registration stuff for it too.
Oh man, well, then how do we get that information then? If anybody is listening who's thinking, how do we get that in?
When I finish today, because today it's Dexter and I have been on a deployment, and so right now have you ever seen the Roadrunner cartoon when his little legs get going?
Oh yeah, that would be me.
Oh, that is definitely me right now. That is definitely me. As soon as we finish, I'm going to be at the manufacturing plant. But this time, what Dexter and I are going to do is I'm going to be showing some very detailed outside pictures and images of the machines and what they look like now, because we're making the best products we've ever made. And I'm going to give some detailed instruction of how the machine operates and detailed images of time lapse inside the machine, so it's making water, so everybody understands the magic behind the technology.
Is it going to be filmed? Is it going to be?
Yes.
Okay, so that means then that if somebody didn't see it over the weekend, there'll be access at some point. Excuse me. There'll be access at some point so that it can be somebody can register to actually participate from the video. Is that?
Yes, we're looking at doing lots of things this on this production run, because now we're at a place where we're inundated with questions and people wanting to understand or try to purchase the technology from us.
Mhm.
So right now, with all the things that have happened to our environment and that are happening so rapidly, this is an absolute must, because we definitely believe in what we do. And
Yeah,
so we
well,
have to share that information.
yeah,
Sonia?
please. I just want to be able to have access to, so that I can let others know when these things are happening, because the education, like you said, this is very necessary. I don't know
Absolutely.
anybody else that's doing precisely what you're talking about. I don't know of anyone else. So that's why it seemed like I'm hanging on to you going, well, where?
Dexter?
And Sonia, when you mention that, if there are any educators that are listening or viewing this, by all means, reach out to us, because, this is, we haven't even talked about an industry behind this. And what we mean by that is really establishing community resilience by teaching our youth about atmospheric water generation, starting in the STEM program, starting out in elementary school, teaching the science behind it, getting into middle schools, talking about the technology. And then last but not least, and I'm going to date myself, we had 2 shop classes when I was going to school. It was auto shop or wood shop. And you
We
went
must
to
be the same age.
and you went and you took one of those 2, right? So that you could learn a skill that you could then go out and adapt, right? You can go out and find, meaningful jobs or meaningful employment. Well, Moses and I believe that atmospheric water generation can be that next shop class in high school, where we're teaching our children throughout their whole education about atmospheric water generation. And while others, and I'm not going to mention any names, are trying to get off of this earth, there are people here on this earth that are trying to maintain what we have and keep it around for as long as possible. And that's what atmospheric water generation is about, right? That's sustainability and utilizing the resources we have. But we have to get it embedded into our education system. We have to get it embedded into our communities, where communities are empowered to take ownership of their water quality, their water production, and own it and say, you know what, we're not going to just trust what's coming out of the pipe or what's, coming out of a bottle. We know what's in the water. We want to manufacture our own water. And to do that, we're going to have to build it at a grassroots effort, and that is utilizing our youth and utilizing the education system to do that. I just wanted to share that.
Oh, well said. I mean, I'm glad that you chimed in, because the community resilience, I love that. I love that part, because that's what we need. That's what we need. So yeah, I'm glad that you shared that, and definitely I have to have you back as you have new things that you need to share. You're always going to be welcome to come to the show. And by the way, I took wood shop instead of sewing class. I still have my spoon and stuff that I made.
Awesome.
I made a skateboard.
I did too. I made a skateboard and a cutting board,
Oh my God.
Yeah, because you laminate those.
Oh man, now I made a spoon, a fork, and a whale, and I still have them. But anyway, this has been so great chatting with you. And of course, we could go on. There's so many different angles to this, areas to this that we could talk about. But I think this definitely starts a conversation and stir thoughts for those who have not been really thinking on a deeper level. We got to get out of the fear, people. We got to get out of the fear and see how the things that we can do to support ourselves so that we don't have to fall into the fear. And this is absolutely one of the clear tools that's moving forward. The technology and the information that is being shared by this wonderful organization. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you.
Thank you very
us.
much. Yes, thank you very much for having us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh man, thank you. All right. Well, thanks to the listening audience as well. The information will be on the website. to click those links and connect and share this interview, because this interview needs to be heard by your kids, by your grandkids, by just anybody. So please share it for the education of it, and also for those who wish to support what is being done at this time. And thanks to the engineer. Also, to find out more about me, do visit therealsoniabarrett.com, but also the expansionzone.com for the archives of just this show and all other shows. And it's also going to be on Spotify as well. Do visit my Facebook page, Instagram, and so on, all that good stuff. And as always, I like to remind you to live life to its fullest and question everything. Until next time, see you then.